CES 2026 was crazy. Humanoid boxing changed the game. CES 2026 didn't just have robots on display, it had robots in a boxing ring. And I know what you're thinking. Cool stunt, pure marketing. But here's the twist. Those viral humanoid boxing clips aren't really about boxing. They're about the one skill every useful humanoid robot needs. And the industry has been quietly struggling with for years. Balance under impact, fast recovery, control, when the world is pushing back. So in this video, we're breaking down the viral clips, what was actually happening, Teleop versus Autonomy, the robots involved, why this matters in the real world, the huge problem nobody mentions, and what changes next. Because if you understand what CES accidentally revealed, you'll understand where humanoids are really headed. Let's get it. First, the clips. CES week hit social media like a sci-fi fight night. A humanoid in headgear and gloves, squaring up with a human in a tiny ring. And then the other version. Two humanoids facing off real steel style, swinging, kicking, stumbling, and somehow making the crowd cheer harder when they almost fall. And the weirdest part? People weren't just watching. They were lining up. One rider literally stepped into the booth ring, put on gloves, and went around with a Unitree Humanoid. And the takeaway was basically, the robot can take a hit, and it is absolutely not embarrassed about aiming low. It's funny, until you feel what 77 pounds of metal with motors actually means in real space. Because we've seen robots walk, we've seen robots dance, we've even seen robots backflip in perfectly controlled videos. But seeing a humanoid take a real shove, stumble, and recover? That's different. And it sets up the most important question. Were these robots actually fighting on their own? Reality check. A lot of this was not fully autonomous. Some of it was choreographed, some of it was remotely piloted, some of it was interactive demo mode with a safety plan off camera. There was even a ticketed event during CES week called UFB Humanoids vs. Vegas, hosted at the BattleBots Arena. The pitch was simple: 8 robots, 8 pilots, 1 trophy. And that detail is everything. Because in that ring, pilots were issuing commands to kick and punch using cameras and motion-sensing game controllers. Yes, basically Nintendo-style motion control. The robot moves because a human moved, and UFB's founders are openly leaning into that. They don't just want robots fighting. They want the human story of the pilot, the strategy, the mistakes, the clutch moments. Like esports, but with gravity. So, if you're thinking, then the robot isn't autonomous? Correct, but teleoperation isn't fake. It's a bridge. It's how you put a humanoid into a messy, physical environment today without turning it into a 35-kilogram liability around a crowd. And teleoperation has a second purpose that's even bigger: data. Every piloted movement becomes a labeled training example. Human intention to robot motion to outcome in the real world. That's why these fight nights are sneaky important. They are public, chaotic, contact-rich data collection, packaged as entertainment. And this is happening while the entire robotics world is trying to solve one brutal problem: getting machines to act safely when the world pushes back. Now let's talk hardware, because the hardware is the whole story. Let's name names. 1. Unitree G1, the affordable humanoid you can actually buy. Unitree's G1 is a big reason this CES boxing moment even exists, because it's not a $1 million lab robot. On Unitree's official store, the G1 is listed at $13,500. That alone is insane. 2 years ago, humanoid robot meant email us for pricing, and the pricing was your house. Unitree positions the G1 as a platform, flexible joints, optional dexterous hands, and an AI-driven control approach they describe as imitation and reinforcement learning-driven. Depending on the version, Unitree lists 23 to 43 joint motors. In plain English, it can move enough like a person that your brain starts assigning it intent. And that's why people can't stop watching. At CES, Unitree's booth wasn't just doing cute dance demos. People were literally stepping in to spar. The robot wore headgear and gloves, and humans got to test what robustness feels like. Mechanically, this is the key. For a robot this size, around 35 kilograms, about 77 pounds, It needs joints that can fight gravity and recover from disturbances. Depending on configuration, you'll see knee joint torque figures in the about 90 to 120 Newton-meter range. And if you've ever tried to stop a falling object with your hands, you already understand why torque matters. Moving on. 2. Engine AIT 800. The Terminator booth. Then you had Engine AI. They put humanoids in a mock boxing ring, and yes, they called one platform the T800. But here's what made Engine AI's booth a perfect metaphor for the whole industry. The bots looked powerful, and also slightly chaotic. Multiple observers noted that on the floor, it wasn't non-stop contact. A lot of it looked like shadowboxing, staging, and don't break the robot choreography. But the real entertainment was in the edge cases. One robot wandering out toward the audience, another tripping and face planting. That's not just funny. That's an honest glimpse of what it takes to move from a demo to deployment, because the real world is one long sequence of edge cases. In Engine AI's own press release, the company claims the T800 is built around high-torque joint modules, delivering up to 450 Newton-meters of peak torque, about 332 pound-feet, and up to 14,000 watts of instantaneous joint peak power, or 14 kilowatts. If those numbers translate into repeatable control day after day, that's not a booth stunt. That's industrial-grade actuation. 3. The UFB ring. Turning humanoids into a sport. UFB's match was the purest form of the trend. A ring, a referee, human pilots, and humanoids throwing moves for a crowd. The reporting describes them as school-child-sized robots, stumbling, missing wildly sometimes, and still getting cheers when a hit lands. And the most important line isn't even about the fight. It's that the bouts can be used to collect body movement data to train robot software. So now the question becomes, why does any of this matter beyond a meme? Because humanoids don't fail because they can't walk in a straight line. They fail because the real world is contact. A doorway bumps your shoulder. A cart clips your foot. A cable snags your ankle. A heavy box shifts in your hands. A floor is slightly slick. Someone steps into your path. And suddenly, your perfect walking demo becomes a fall. So the real game isn't making a humanoid look human. It's making a humanoid not fall when reality happens. That's why boxing, of all things, is a useful stress test. It forces rapid balance correction, whole body coordination, impact tolerance, and recovery after a shove. Those are the same ingredients you need for factories and warehouses. A humanoid carrying parts, turning corners, getting bumped by equipment, and staying upright without harming anyone. And notice what boxing does that normal demos avoid. It creates contact, not just touch-a-table contact, real, unpredictable, dynamic contact. That's what humanoids have historically hated. Because contact exposes the gap between pretty motion and stable control. Now add the software trend on top. Humanoid hardware is getting good enough. That software becomes the bottleneck. So these boxing demos are doing two things at once. They're proving the mechanical platform can survive disturbances, and they're generating the kind of messy, real-world data that learning-based robotics needs. But there's a huge problem nobody mentions, and it's the reason humanoid boxing could be both the future and a dead end. The problem isn't violence. It's not even teleoperation. The problem is operations. Reliability when nobody is standing 3 feet away with a controller and a kill switch. At CES, every demo has a safety net. A ring, a boundary, a controlled floor, staff ready to intervene. In the real world, you don't get that. If a humanoid is working in a warehouse at 2 a.m. and it faceplants, that's not a funny clip. That's downtime, and downtime is death in commercial robotics. Also, contact is expensive. Every fall is wear. Every impact is stress. Every weird twist is a maintenance bill. This is the part the crowd never sees. The technicians, the spare parts, the recalibration, the, okay, let's reboot it and try again. So outside the ring, the unsexy questions decide everything. How many hours can it work before service? How many cycles before a joint drifts? How many oops moments before a part snaps? And here's the quiet factor nobody wants to say out loud. The hardest thing to scale isn't the robot, it's the liability. The moment you put a humanoid into public space, you're not just building a machine, you're building a safety case. What happens if it falls into someone? If it pinches a hand? If it drops a tool? if it panics in a corner. That's why so many demos stay in cages and rings. Because the cage isn't just for the show, it's for the insurance. And there's another quiet issue. Transfer. The reflexes you train in a fight don't automatically translate to fold laundry or load a dishwasher. Manipulation, hands, fingers, delicate force control, is still its own universe. So yes, boxing shows progress. But the real hurdle is validation. Proving a humanoid can do useful work, safely, reliably, for long periods in uncontrolled environments. That's the part nobody claps for. But it's the part that decides whether this becomes an industry or just a sport. So what changes next in the next 12 to 24 months? 1. Robot sports become a real research and development pipeline. Leagues make sense because they sell tickets and generate data. Expect more events, more formats, and better benchmarking. Not just who wins, but who recovers faster, who falls less, who survives impact. 2. Teleoperation gets productized. Better wearable rigs, better mixed reality interfaces, better safety layers. Because teleoperation is the closest thing we have to useful humanoids right now. 3. The hardware race gets brutal. A $13,500 humanoid existing at all changes the conversation. Because now researchers, startups, and even rich hobbyists can buy platforms, build software on top, and push the ecosystem forward. 4. The wow moments will slowly get replaced by boring wins. The real milestone won't be a knockout. It'll be a humanoid doing 8 hours of repetitive work in a busy environment, without a babysitter. No ring, no referee, no viral clip. Just reliability. And when that happens, CES boxing will look less like a meme, and more like the crash test phase of humanoid robotics. So yeah, CES 2026 was crazy. Humanoid boxing went viral for a reason, but the real story isn't that robots learn to fight. It's that robots are finally getting stable enough to survive contact. And once you have that, you're one step closer to humanoids that can actually work. Not because they can throw a punch, but because they can stay standing when the world hits back. Now I want to hear from you. Are humanoid fight leagues genius or just a distraction? Let us know in the comments. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and check out our socials for more from the world of high tech. That's it, folks.